Okay, so we're at a point now where we're going to collect the data on our cases. Remember, you have Taylor or Miguel. Up until this point, what you've done is you've operationally defined the behavior. For both students, Taylor and Miguel, depending on which case you're looking at, there's two behaviors you want to operationally define. Remember, your definition needs to be clear, observable, and measurable. The most important thing you want to look at when you're looking at an operational definition is what can a complete and total stranger see the actual behaviors that are occurring. What we have is a response class in both. So for example, in Miguel, we're talking about aggression. But aggression doesn't tell me anything. I want to know exactly what that looks like. So for Miguel, it might look like tearing up paper. It might look like hitting. It might look like wrestling. It might look like teasing. Then we want to clarify exactly what those look like too. So for example, if I'm talking about tearing up paper, I want to say something like taking the paper and making a physical divot in it so it's not in its normal form. So that could be a minuscule, like a millimeter, all the way up to a complete paper in half. So if the teacher is defining that as aggression, then that's what you want to look at. The next thing we want to do is start importing this data. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I'm going to try to walk through what data collection and data analysis looks like. So I've got some data here. I'm just going to take this and chart. I'm going to delete it so I can walk you through exactly what I did. So you see aggression right here. So I'm going to highlight the days and the aggression data that we've entered. I want to go to insert. I'm going to go over to line or area chart. I want to insert line with markers. So we're just going to work on aggression really quick, and I'll show you exactly how that works out. So the first thing we want to do is give our chart a title. So I might put Miguel aggressive behaviors. And remember, we're just working on the baseline data. We're working on data that we've collected and observed during baseline. We haven't put an intervention in yet. So the data or this graph is going to look slightly different if we were looking at this a couple weeks down the line. So you'll notice that I've double clicked to make the blue lines, the blue circles. I double click on the background. Then I'm going to push one button, delete, and all those background lines disappear. And the next thing that we want to do is add our axis in our X and our Y axis. So if we put axis titles, say I push that plus mark right here, and I want to go into axis titles, and that gives us our axis. So right here, the first one might be, might be occurrences. So when I type in there, you can see that I can change the titles. And down here, this title is going to be week of 11/5 to 11/12. It's not quite a week, but it gives us a good idea. Or weeks of. Let's just go ahead and put weeks. Now you'll notice that this line is blue. The interesting thing about Excel spreadsheet is the default is blue. However, if we were printing this out on a printer, a black and white printer, we want it to be accessible to everyone. If we did a black and white printer, we might or might not be able to get those blue lines in, which may skew our data later. So we want to change this to fully black and white so it prints very well. We want to consider universal design too, in that if a parent is looking at this or another case group is looking at this, we want it to be something that they can see very clearly. So we're going to change those lines. So you want to go to line right here in solid line. You'll notice the default is blue. You'll click on that down arrow and push the black. And now it changed our line to black. With the exception of our markers. See, our little blue markers are still blue. So I want to click on those and come over here to marker. I want to go solid. I want to click on fill, solid fill, and the color then is going to be black. And you'll notice that our markers are now black as well. When you're doing a graph, you want to keep it clear and understandable. Now, if I were to change this graph and change the adjustments of it up or down, you'll notice that I'm just taking the lines and making sure that I'm not making it askew, because I'll watch what happens if I do that. Now the data looks very different as I skewed up my graph. So you want it to be very clear and easy to read. So that is the difference between a non-formatted and formatted data. Now, the other thing we want to do is we want to add a phase change line, because we've completed all of our baseline data. So the next thing we want to do is our intervention. So I'm going to come over to illustrations or shapes. Sometimes it says shapes rather than illustrations, depending on what format you're using, whether it's Excel, Google Sheets, an older version of Excel. But you're looking at illustrations and or shapes. You want to go down and click an up and down straight line. And we're going to put that straight line in. Now notice it's blue. Remember, again, the default is always blue. So now we've got to go back and change our color. I right-clicked on it and I see the outline is blue here. So I want to go back to black. And that gives us a good baseline graph with our phase change line already embedded, so we can continue data collecting.